Hello and welcome back to another episode of Narratief met Bosch. I'm super excited about today's show. It's for all the film nerds like me out there, people that want to make films, people that's in the film industry that needs answers and to figure out this interesting turmoil time that we're in with Canal Plus, buying MultiChoice, and Showmax just announced that they're closing down. Luke has been in the industry for more than 20 years, producing a lot of content. From City Sesla when they started to Black Tax and High Rollers, and last year I worked with them on a film for Netflix that we made. He's got an incredible CV. He's got a lot of knowledge on producing, executive producing, getting funds for films, getting films distributed, just taking hands with the international film community as well. And he's been fighting the good fight against all the nonsense that's been happening with the DTI and the government and all the money that's supposed to go to rebates and filmmakers that's not going to the filmmakers. And he's been on the forefront of that. They just came back from Parliament. And it was an awesome chat, very interesting, very informative and educational. So if you're a film buff and someone that's interested in the film industry, this is definitely a conversation for you, and share it with your friends that's in the film industry as well, because it's a very, very interesting time that we're at, but there's also hope, in my opinion. So you have to wait till the end of the episode for all the hope. Luke Rous in the episode, and also this little legend, the Solenko fan, keeping us cool in the studio. A little silent, you got a little remote here. Look, you can just pop it off there. I'm going off there. You can get this nice, quiet little fan on the SolenkoStore.com, www.solenkostore.com. And if you use the promo code Bosch, you can get 10% discount. Here we go. Enjoy the show with Luke Rous. Exciting times. Doing a new podcast today with a new system. Anel, the producer. One day we'll put a shot of Anel in the show, but Anel is flicking live between me and our amazing guest, Luke Rous today. Luke Rous, extraordinary producer extraordinaire, amongst other things.
That is how I prefer to be referred to from now on.
You are also an incredible actor.
Oh, wow.
Your comeback.
Your
comeback needs to happen.
I haven't acted in a good 20 years, yeah.
That you're like Daniel Day-Lewis. The more you're away, the more people...
I did do a little bit of shoe cobbling.
Oh, nice. Well, then what president can you play? It must be like the worst.
Was South African president?
Because that's obviously Lincoln. He played Lincoln. And there was obviously a big role for him. But I'm trying to think if we need to orchestrate a comeback for you, maybe political role. But there's not a lot of good white politicians.
I did a show called City Sesla a long time ago. In fact, last year was the 20th year kind of anniversary. And I'd like to kind of take that role up again. Nice. I played a character called David, who's complete airhead and ladies' man. And I think that would be fun. I remember doing that character and thinking like, it's not this is easy, but it wasn't easy. It felt like acting is, it's an effort.
Yeah.
Like it's a lot of effort. And I just remember seeing the people in the background who were producing the stuff and thinking, well, they just sit around on their computers all day long. That's kind of what I wish I could be doing.
Well, you just came back from Parliament.
That's right.
From fighting the good fight. So for context, I'm going to butcher this, but Luke is on the forefront of fighting for South African jobs in the film industry, taking on the government and all the policies and all the nonsense that kind of like screwing the industry at the moment. And you are at the forefront there. You just came back from Parliament.
Yes, I'm one of the
team
the people who are putting our necks out and trying to make a difference. I'm on the Exco of the IPO, the Independent Producers Organization. I've been there doing that for about 6 or 7 years now. And we have started a coalition, which is the Save SA Films Jobs Coalition. And it's a coalition of like 17 different member organizations that represent not just producers, but crew, actors, writers, editors, directors, stunt people, the whole gambit. And we are trying to make a difference, specifically with, lobbying for change within the rebates, incentive structure schemes that the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition house. And those haven't really been working well. And I'd love to talk about that, dive into that.
Is the reason it's not working well? Is it a case of like a lot of other government institutions, unfortunately? Is it a corrupting? The money gets put in pockets, or is it just bad management? Like there's no structures in place. The money goes to the wrong places.
I mean, I can't say that. I can't really say that there's like definite evidence of corruption, but we are asking for an independent investigation into the maladministration. I think there's been maladministration for sure. That's our contention. And perhaps I can like just take it a step back and like lay out some context of what the rebates are and how long they've been running. So there are currently 4 rebates, and the top one is called the foreign film rebate. So this is for like foreign-owned companies, Warner Brothers, Paramount, et cetera, who want to come and film here. They can receive between 20 and 25% as a rebate on the South African spend. That means that once they've spent the money here in South Africa, then they make their application to the DTIC, and whatever they have spent, they can receive 25% back. So it's an incentive to try and get people to come and film here, and so that's the top one. Then there's the SA co-production incentive scheme. So this is available to producers who want to co-produce with other countries around the world who South Africa has a co-production relationship with in the form of a treaty. So we have 9 currently, 9 different countries around the world we have treaties with. So Canada, Australia, the UK, Ireland, a number of them. We're trying to sign the one with Brazil. We're trying to get one with Nigeria, so there's more inter-African trade. So if, like I did an international co-production with Canada in 2023 for a Hallmark movie called Safari Romance. Everything you need to know about that film is in the name. And
streaming now.
It is on Hallmark, actually.
Nice.
It was a fun project. So, but it was beneficial because essentially, as a co-production, you have like 2 different passports. You have a Canadian passport for your film in terms of it being considered a domestic product of Canada and available for all of the various incentives that Canada offers, and then a domestic product of South Africa, and again, available for all the incentives that South Africa offers. So that scheme, you can get up to 40% as a rebate on qualifying South African spend. It's 35%, but then if you jump through certain hoops, it can get up to 40%. And then there's the SA Film and TV scheme, which is just for local South African productions. And there, again, you can get up to 40%. And then there's the Black Filmmaker scheme, which you can get up to 50%. So these schemes have been running since 2004 and in various different iterations. In 2008, there was a big change. In 2012, there was a big change. 2018, there was a big change. And they've been like largely very successful to put South Africa on the map. If you think back in 2004 when they started, there were like 7 different incentive schemes around the world, which is not a lot. South Africa was really at the forefront and the cutting edge of these things. And now, there are, at the last count, I think there were 121 different schemes around the world. So countries have recognized the benefit of incentives to attract foreign production into their country because for a number of reasons. Number one, it's like a great ad for your country, okay? I mean, remember... Bless you.
But it's like, Tom Cruise comes here. Everyone, the whole world's like, I'm aware Tom Cruise in South Africa. So it helps definitely with tourism in
exactly. I mean, who hasn't wanted to go to like Dubrovnik because of Game of Thrones or, any of these...
White Lotus.
White Lotus, exactly. And for South Africa, the production of Black Sails, they shot 4 seasons here, and that was... One Piece now, exactly. So it really puts us on the map. Then secondly, it is a great foreign direct investment. When say the DTIC is funding a mine, you might take 10 years before there's any actual minerals extracted from the earth, let alone revenue coming from it. Whereas a film, you can attract foreign direct investment within 3 to 6 months. It's a very quick foreign direct investment, and it's when you're dealing with foreign currencies like dollars, pounds, euros, whatever, it's like a massive influx of money into the country. Most of that goes to kind of the more established centers, so say the Western Cape, Cape Town, and Gauteng, some of it in KwaZulu-Natal. And then, the film industry is a majority youth employer. So most people, as you'll know, on a film set are under the age of 35. And actually, the film industry is a majority woman employer. So it's got fantastic options. Also, the film industry has like a super low barrier to entry. I mean, semi-skilled to no-skilled people can enter as runners and production interns and learn a craft on their way. You don't have to have gone to AFTA or TUT or any of these places. So this is great benefits in the industry, and which is why the government recognizes it's important to fund these things, and the incentive schemes were established. And the purpose of the incentive scheme is to attract productions, mostly foreign productions, but also to stimulate local production. And it was working really well up until 2018. 2019, 2020, somewhere there, was going well. And then we start to see in 2020, 2021, like big problems coming in with the advent of these repudiations that took place, which is something that we're now suggesting is maladministration and that needs to be looked into by a third-party independent reporter. So the the repudiations took place in that 8 different production companies and 29 projects that were approved and had been given their successful approval letters from the DTIC. When they came to claim for their money, the DTIC said, no, we're not happy with this, so we're repudiating your claims. You don't get the money. And it's important to note that most of these were service jobs, and the service producers in the Western Cape do not get the rebate money themselves. Like, they are a third-party middleman for the international company, right? So the rebate money goes to Warner Brothers, Paramount, whoever has brought the production to South Africa. So it's, when you hear vast amounts of money going to these service producers in the Western Cape predominantly, it's not going to those people, it's going to the international companies. So we have calculated roughly in the tune of like 550 million rand was repudiated in 2020 and 2021. And what started as a result of that was those international companies can no longer trust the rebate or South Africa as a destination to come and bring their shows. And so we start to see a decline in the amount of big ticket shows coming to shoot here, because you owe me 50 million rand and you haven't paid it. 2 years later, after a lot of legal battles, almost all of those repudiations were overturned. The then Minister Ibrahim Patel, when he found out what the department was doing, said, no, this is wrong. You can't be using a different standard to measure BEE scorecards than what the government itself measures. You must stick to the rules. And so they overturned all those repudiations. All that money was paid out, but by then the damage was done.
Yeah. So how did it go in Parliament? Were you met with open arms?
A little bit more context. So in 2023, the DTI changed the rules again and published new guidelines. And in Feb 2024, they stopped adjudication committee meetings. So no new projects were approved. And we didn't know how long it was going to take. We didn't understand why they were doing that. And we thought it would come back online. But it's now been 2 years. There have been no adjudication meetings, no money, no new projects have been approved. And we were like pulling our hair out, like, what is going on? So we organized a march in Feb 25 outside the DTIC offices. And it was well attended, but, perhaps not as organized as perhaps we could have been. And it was really the producers who were kind of pulling the thing together. And as a result of that, we got some meetings with the Deputy Minister, Zuko Gotlimpi, and we got some workshops going, but a lot of promises and no real action. So at the beginning of this year, in Jan 28th and 29th, we were strategizing, and 6 months ago we started this process thinking, okay, we're still not getting the results we need. We have to make some change. So we said, okay, we're going to march in front of the DTIC, but we're also going to march in front of Parliament, because the DTIC have an oversight committee, the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on the DTIC, and they are a group of 17 parliamentarians who are charged with the oversight of what the DTIC spend. And so we marched outside Parliament and we demanded to hand our letter of demands over to the chairman of that portfolio committee, Mzwandile Masina, and he came out. We didn't expect him to come, but then the marchers were like adamant, no, we're not leaving until somebody senior comes. He came out, he received our memo, and the strangest thing was when we spoke to him about it, he's like, I didn't know. I had no idea. When we have the DTIC here and we do our quarterly engagements with them, they say everything's fine. Wow. Yeah, right? So no, not everything is fine. There's a lot of problems. So under the banner of Save SA Films Jobs Coalition, we did those marches, and as a result of that, Mzwandile Masina said, hey, we've got to have a portfolio committee meeting. We want to hear from the department, from the minister, from the deputy ministers, from the DDG and the DG of that film unit, and we want to hear from industry. So we were both invited, and on the 17th of February, we presented to Parliament, and the DTIC had their presentation, and then we had our presentation, and then the parliamentarians asked us a bunch of questions, and you can find those that YouTube link, put it in the notes for people to watch it. It's like a 4-hour long video, but you can see what they were saying, what we were saying. The gist of it is that we were making an economic argument that film has this incredible return on investment quotient, like calculation. In fact, it's somewhere in the region of 5 to 1. So for every rand government spent on incentives, they receive 5 rand back in economic activity within the industry, in either direct, indirect, or induced economic activity. So direct activity would be
tourism, straight up.
No. Direct activity would be, say, for example, a production designer who's paid to build the sets. Indirect activity would be the lumber yard who you buy the lumber for to build the sets. And induced activity would be the tourists come around to see the film set. And each of those have its own kind of revenue stream attached to it. And obviously in Cape Town, filming has become like a huge part of the economy. In terms of GDP contribution, I think we're in the lower digit range to 1.5–2%, but it's not nothing. And another important milestone that the IPO have managed to achieve is that whenever we have these discussions and arguments with the DTIC, it's always like he said, she said, because we're using different facts and figures. We're not speaking off the same hymn sheet. So we said we need a universal truth. You know, we need to be able to point to this is the truth, so both parties can agree to it. And so we commissioned a study from Olsberg SPI, which is a UK-based firm, who are an incentive, they're the incentive wizards. You know, they've done studies on all the incentives around the world, Ireland, Brazil, Australia, blah blah blah. They're excellent. And so we brought partners together, the IDC, Netflix, Gauteng Film Commission, IPO, to fund this study, to come out here for 9 months. They interviewed respondents, they gathered information, they spoke to the DTIC, although they were not very responsive. And they put together like a 95-page, very detailed document, which lays out over the last 10 years what has been used from the DTIC, how much money has flowed through it, where has it flowed, where has it gone, what are the economic benefits, so that we can all use this document as a toolkit for producers, for film entrepreneurs, to say this is the truth and the reality of the situation. And that's out now, it's available. And last week, Wednesday, we had a panel at the Joburg Film Market. Bouwer is supposed to be a filmmaker.
I'm a filmmaker, but I don't even know about these things.
Yeah.
Classic.
Well, it was run in Sandton, and we had a panel that was launching the study, and the DTIC were invited to attend, and they came, and which is good, especially after the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee, which I think they got a little bit of a hiding there because people were not buying their story. And so there's the toolbox now, and now we start the work of trying to revive the incentives, trying to revise the rules and the guidelines because it's so complicated and unnecessarily complex, and trying to argue and motivate for more money to be given by Treasury to be ring-fenced for the film unit.
Yeah. Sheesh. Personal question, why are you doing this? Meaning, you obviously got a big passion for, because I know you're an amazing guy. But I mean, there's obviously nothing in it for you. Well, you're a producer, so it'll benefit you as well if you can take hands with another. But I mean, it feels to be like, like Helen Zeller, she's like 74, she's moving to Joburg now to come and revive the city. I'm like, why? Just go and relax and enjoy the rest of your life. But I mean, it's basically the drive inside you.
Thank you for comparing me to Helen Zeller. I'll take that. I heard that podcast of hers. And
both hardworking people.
Yeah, for those who haven't listened to it, I'd highly recommend it. I really enjoyed that. No, I think, why am I doing it? First of all, the work I do at the IPO is voluntary. We don't get paid for it. It's like a full-time job, and it's I do it because of the colleagues, because of the people who do it with me, and that if I don't do it, nobody will. I always thought that, I always knew this stuff was happening in the background, but I didn't. Somebody else is taking care of it. It's somebody else's problem. But I've really come to realize that if I don't physically actually put my hand up and try to figure things out, that nothing happens. I always had this vision for my life that I would be able to. My dad is a bit of a crude analogy, but my father's a doctor, and he said if he doesn't have his finger down someone's throat or up their bum, he's not making money. He's selling his time, right? And I didn't want to do that I wanted to have a career where I could make a product, and that product would go on to sell while I was sleeping. And to some degree, I've gotten that right. But the ultimate version of that was to be part of an international filming community so that I could live here in Joburg. I'm within, a half-hour radius of 20 of my closest family members, and I can still be part of this international community where I managed to bring, foreign currency into the country here. And I'm telling South African stories, but not just for South Africans, for the rest of the world as well. And without this incentive, it's almost impossible to do that. Like I said, there are 120 around the world. So international co-productions go to wherever the incentive is reliable and beneficial and has a lot of money and people can actually use it. So I see this as like it's an extinction level event we're at now. Like you must feel it, right? You're in the advertising side, but the production side of our industry is really taking a big knock. I speak to almost everybody I speak to, whether they're producers or actors or writers. I mean, on the regular, I get DMs and messages and emails saying, have you got something for me? What's happening?
How many shows, how many shows got cancelled this year that was supposed to happen and didn't happen. And
now we just have the cancellation of Showmax. So it's not good news, and it just seems to be getting worse and worse and worse. And if we can somehow figure out this incentive thing and bring some hope and bring some government oversight and bring some government help back into the industry, I really think there can be a huge benefit.
About the Showmax closing down announcement, what do you know about it? Is it difficult to cater for such a broad, diverse country like ours? Because we got like 12, 13 languages that you have to cater for, culture groups. Or is it a pure business decision that it was cut down, or was it just could no one crack how to serve South Africa with the streaming content in a way?
Yeah, Bo, that's a big one. I have some interesting thoughts on it, or at least I think they're interesting. I think that Showmax has been running for 10 years now, right? And I think MultiChoice saw the writing on the wall that streaming is the future, and so they made this big bet on Showmax. And initially, when they started it, Showmax's platform was housed in Poland. It's actually domiciled in Poland, and I stand under correction, but I believe that's true. And obviously, a lot of the work, the original production was taking place here and then being, broadcast or streamed in some other territories, Poland being one of them. And their major focus was on local content and local production. And, it was a good business model for them because the money they spend on producing stuff for like CakeNet and Zanzi Magic then can get repurposed onto Showmax. Now, though it's important to understand there are two separate entities and they couldn't just give the content across. So Showmax has to buy the content from MultiChoice. And because Showmax is housed internationally, they pay in dollar rates. And every time the dollar exchange rate fluctuates, it hurts that whole business model. In fact, MultiChoice buys most of its content in dollar. And so that's a big problem. So we've had like huge fluctuations even in the last 2 years. I mean, it's 25% decrease in the value of the rand. Or should I say increase in the value of the rand, which has had an impact. And then I think that, ultimately the purchase of MultiChoice by Canal Plus is a super interesting time and interesting thing to examine. I think, this is my personal view, that Canal Plus has bought a lemon. MultiChoice is like a failing business and is continuously losing subscribers and has for the last 3 years lost over 200,000 subscribers a year. And I think that if the sale had not gone through with Canal Plus, I think there would have been maybe 18 to 24 months worth of operating costs. I mean, MultiChoice is technically insolvent according to their financial statements. They do not have enough money to cover their liability in terms of revenue increase. So when you look at specifically Showmax, in 2024's financials, they lost 2.4 billion. In 2025's financials, they lost 4.9 billion. This is
like double. What?
This is massive amounts of investment and money, not down the toilet, but like I think if the Canal Plus guys had been like, we're going to double down on this and make this work, it would have cost another maybe 4.9 or something to get it up and running and working again. But as a combination of say the exchange rate thing, the fact that running a business, a VOD business, is like a never-ending fire hose of content you need to keep producing at a massive rate. And Showmax was trying to differentiate itself from, the mass market offering that MultiChoice had for Zanzi Magic or CakeNet, and try to be like higher cost per minute, higher budget amounts. They were they had these deals with HBO that they would be, within 24 hours of the HBO shows coming out, they would be available on Showmax. And then they got into this relationship with NBC Universal in 2023. So because the platform that Showmax was on was this Polish platform, which was okay, but didn't quite operate as good as it should have, they got into a deal with NBC whereby they would be able to use the platform that Peacock was using. Peacock is NBC's VOD platform. Now, they still have a couple of years left on that deal, so I don't know how that's going to work out with the cancellation of Showmax, because that thing cost hundreds of millions of dollars to agree to, right? And NBC ended up taking a percentage of ownership of Showmax, so it's unclear how that whole thing is going to happen. But basically, the French guys came in and said, this is not working. You have spent so much money on this thing. It's not getting the subs you need. You're losing subscriptions. No. Plus, Canal Plus have their own VOD platform in the market, right? Canal Plus Afrique, and I think it's called My Canal, operates in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa. It's predominantly for a French or Anglophone French audience, but that would be two competing products.
But are there indications of them? So Showmax is dying a slow death now, like a little sunset there. Did Canal Plus indicate anything like, hey, it's going to be temporary, we're working on a new platform that's hopefully better and actually winstgevend, what's the word, profitable?
Yeah, so they did indicate that. If you had been at the Johannesburg film market, you would have heard Tracy Ann van Rooyen, who is the current boss of Showmax, head of content there, said that yes, Showmax is being sunsetted, but their plans for streaming are strong and robust and they want to do it. And then the press release has been painted as a very kind of positive thing in that nobody's losing their jobs, and the purchase of MultiChoice by Canal Plus came with a number of restrictions that the Competition Commission placed on them, because such a large purchase from a foreign entity of a local South African broadcaster with broadcast license capabilities requires a lot of rules to be put in place. And a number of those rules were like no job losses for the first 3 years. You have to continue to spend the same amount of money that you have spent for the last 3 years on the next 3 years in terms of content acquisition and local content spend.
Well, that's one rule they're not abiding to now.
I mean, they have 3 years to do that, right? And they're only in there for the last 3-4 months. So they need to, and we are all waiting with bated breath.
Okay.
And so the news that they are proclaiming that this is, nobody's losing their job from it. Yes, no MultiChoice employee may lose their job, but there are massive job losses for the production companies and the writers and the directors and the actors who are producing stuff for Showmax. I mean, just think about, Die Kantoor, which was hilariously funny. And I know a second season was on the cards. Where's that going to go now? Maybe there'll be an audience for it at Cakenet, I hope. But at a different price point for a different audience. And when will that happen? What decision? We need clarity from Canal Plus and MultiChoice about these promises they made around commissioning local content. When is it going to take place? And the IPO made their submissions to the Competition Commission under the banner of the Black Business Council, and our letter of demand was put on record, and they recognized it, and we had a number, like 9 different demands that we wanted to see, one of which was no job losses, another of which was the increase of local production content spend, another of which was the fringing policy the IPO has, et cetera, et cetera. And they have not started the negotiation process with us. They agreed that, yes, these things are important, we will talk to you about it. And the Competition Commission said, if they don't talk to you about it, then you have right of recourse to come back to us, and we can threaten to slap on the wrist or whatever. Exactly. And so, we need to get into those discussions, and it's not a good thing for our industry, especially where we're at. SABC are still nowhere to be found. There's a whole different discussion around SABC's funding model that we can get into if you like. ETV have experienced a contraction in 25. I hope that 26 there'll be more money that they can spend. Amazon's exit in beginning 24, everyone is still kind of reeling from that. They had a lot of projects in development. They were like handing them out like lollipops, and then all of a sudden, all gone. So we're only starting to recover now from that exit. Netflix had a big contraction in 24 and 25, combined with this weird leadership vacuum that got a lot of projects cancelled and left the industry kind of reeling. they've stabilized now with Kay-Ann Williams, and her leadership has brought a lot of stability, and it seems like they've got a good local content strategy and things are happening. But like ultimately Netflix can do 10 or 12 things a year. That's not enough to run an industry on. That's nowhere near enough. And honestly, if you don't know the right people, how are you going to get a meeting with them? How they don't have a content portal that you can submit your proposals on. So it's a really tricky broadcast space. People are suffering. I mean, we had the marches at the beginning of the year, and we had a great turnout, 1,000 people in Cape Town, 1,000 people in Joburg. And I got calls from producers saying, I'm so sorry I can't attend because on the day you're marching, I have to pack up my house. I'm selling it. I'm liquidating. I'm going into business rescue because of DTIC, because of the broadcast industry. This film industry has killed me. And this is like a well-known producer who has done, dozens of projects. And I'm feeling the pinch. I know a lot of people are feeling the pinch, and it's really painful. And I don't want to see our industry die. I want to see it, revived and healthy and strong again.
Yeah. Do you see a world where Canal Plus comes back and up the budgets more than we've ever seen before? Do you think we can be hopeful like that? Because not to say like Showmax's budgets were conservative, because I know there were some big budgeted projects coming out of there. But do you think Canal Plus might be like, hey guys, you made shows for way too little money. We need to up the budgets.
I think that it's helpful to understand their reasoning behind why they've purchased MultiChoice. And I'm not an expert in this, but this is my understanding that I think they view MultiChoice as a production hub in Africa. I think they view Africa as a place for subscriptions, as a untapped revenue source for VOD. Africa has so many interesting things going for it. We have kind of some of the fastest smartphone adoption rates in the world. We have the youngest audience in the world, the youngest population in the world. And it's really like if you think of it as a gold rush, this is the cutting edge of new audience, right? The US and predominantly Europe have already been like exhausted. In fact, there are no new subscribers, hardly any new subscribers in the US to get onto, say, Netflix or any of these streaming platforms. Like you're just competing with the churn of the different places. The new untapped resources are in markets like third world markets like Africa, India, the Philippines, places like that. And I wrote a LinkedIn article that you can look at, examining the graveyard of African streamers, because there've been, as I count, roughly 15 attempts at launching streamers in Africa that haven't worked for various reasons. I think of Alcatel, I think of MTN, Vodacom, Cell C. Remember Cell C had Black, Cell C Black? They spent so much money on that. They were shelling out so much cash. I remember meeting with the head of content for Cell C and pitching a bunch of stuff to them. And she's like, okay, cool. And then she asks me at the end of it, do you think what we're doing is a good idea? Like, if you don't know, how the hell am I supposed to know? I mean, these people just, poured millions of rands into trying to get this thing up and running. And so far, Netflix is the only one I'm aware of in Africa that's been able to do it at scale and produce original content regularly. And the only reason they could do that is because they've got the deepest pockets in the world, and they can see the value, and they just stay the path. Yeah. And it's still taken them. They've, this year is 10 years they've been in South Africa, and it took them 9 years to reach some level of profitability in this market. And they didn't reach that in Kenya or Nigeria, the other markets they operate in Africa. And in fact, they've stopped original productions in both those territories. South Africa is the only place they do original productions. They'll do license work, and they'll do, acquisitions and pre-sales in Kenya and Nigeria, but not okay, here's a whole bunch of cash, go do a great original production for Netflix in those territories. It's only happening here. So I think that's, indicative of the difficulty of getting a VOD platform working. So when I look at Canal Plus and what they, I think, are trying to achieve here, I don't think it's like, yay, we're going to give you so much cash. I think they look at South Africa as a production hub for quality content for Africa, and that hopefully the rest of the world, that their studio canal, their other distribution business in Europe can exploit and take these content. They really love spinners. They really love Shaka Lembe. They really love...
almost like culturally close to a certain... Like I want to say cultural stories, But I mean, the Spinner story is very in
Different
the Cape
stories,
Colour
unique
community.
stories,
Yeah.
different and unique.
Shaka
yes.
Ilembe was obviously it's like Game of Thrones set in the Zulu world.
Yes, and an excellently produced and
Yeah.
beautiful. Cost 80 million rand a season.
I thought it's 200. It was 200 million.
I don't think it's that much, but I have heard the number.
Rumor.
Yikes, 200. Yeah, I don't know about that. But they took a big bet with that, and it's paid off. I think it's a beautiful show, but it cost a lot of money, that thing.
No,
I don't think Canal Plus are going
Yeah.
to come with big, deep pockets. I think they're going to expect really tight budget allocations in this country. I think it would be difficult to justify the spend on hyper-local content that we have, like, for example, the Afrikaans content and the Black Mass audience content for Mzansi Magic. Like, I think the Frenchies are going to look at this and be like, why are you spending so much money on this stuff? And is it getting the return I want? Now, luckily, Afrikaners, keep it on CakeNet and don't change the channel. And so that business model makes sense because you have, the highest tier subscription paid by this homogenous group of people who keep paying it regularly. And even though they complain bitterly on Facebook about it, they don't ever stop. They keep watching that stuff.
That is so true.
And relative production cost is very low compared to, what they might spend somewhere else.
It feels to me, the whole Canal Plus move, it feels personal. It feels like we won them in the World Cup with 1 point. And they were like, we're going to buy their TV. And we're going to take all their jobs.
I wonder, hey?
No.
That's interesting.
No, it's not true.
Well, if you look at what Maxine Sada, the CEO of Canal Plus, has said about Africa, his hopes and dreams for Africa, it sounds very exciting. He wants to take African content to the rest of the world. That's probably maybe 10% of the stuff. Most of it will be like produce mass stuff for the African francophone businesses in the rest of French-speaking Africa. And then, service the local South African audience. And then once or twice a year, you'll have a really big, expensive thing that could have a breakout international appeal. Probably. I think we'll get into that space. But the people I've spoken to at MultiChoice say it is a good time for co-productions. MultiChoice has always viewed co-production as the crown jewel of what they're kind of trying to achieve.
Well, Spinners is a co-production.
Spinners is a co-production. Rake is a co-production. Catch Me a Killer is a co-production. White Lies is a co-production. These are shows that are at a higher price point, not too high that it makes MultiChoice's recoupment of their investment too difficult, and that they then sell into 100 different territories on the world and make a good return on their exploitation fees. Yeah. Whereas someone like Netflix in Africa specifically, you try to pitch them co-production that has any appeal to other than South Africans, and they, close their ears because they are only measured. Netflix Africa is only measured on their only yardstick for success is subscriptions in this territory. So they don't care about
a show doing
Blood and Water has is number 2 in India or America, like it has been. They're like, cool, that's a nice to have, but it's not a successful measurement unless it performs here in this country, which is why they're going for this hyper uber local strategy of making stories just for South Africans. And in that regard, I think it's a bit of a pity because the stories just kind of feel a little bit the same, because they're aiming at a specific large homogenous group. And I wish they would reconsider that. I hope that they would, for the co-production space where they're licensing or doing a pre-sale on a piece of content, recognize that they can't, ask that of, like, I need to, put together a finance model that, takes the African piece and then I sell it to a distributor in Europe and I sell the Canadian rights and then I cobble together a thing and I'm making a piece of content that's going to satisfy this local audience, but also will have an audience in Canada and in Europe as well. And so that the thing can travel and be a hit all over, and they just haven't come to that party. Maybe in the future they'll be open to it.
But at least I know what they want. It helps, I guess. To even though meaning to say that we only want to target on local. If it goes international, cool, man. But we're not here for that. We have to get more local people subscribed. People who don't have Netflix yet, we need to get those people on board.
Yeah, it works for their business model. Doesn't really work for the industry.
Fair.
Time will tell. But until we get this rebate system working, we can't really argue that much because I can't go and find international money because everybody's saying, well, where's your incentive? And it's not working. Where are the sources of income for you to add to this finance model?
On the point of finance, for the up-and-coming filmmakers out there that's listening to this, where do I find money? I've got a script. I believe in it. the NVF and the DTI, I don't know, the DTI is part of the problem at the moment, but the NVF still exists. You can still submit. Maybe you can explain a little bit what the NVF is, what they do, how many times a year the submissions open.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there are a number of different places that
It
you
stands for the National
Film and Video Foundation, which is funny.
Video. Why video? What's video?
Yeah, bro. Back, that's a throwback to the 90s. And it's video, but then they don't. They've only recently started funding TV projects. It was only ever film for a long time. I don't know why they had the video in there. Yeah, so the NFEF is an institute that falls under DSAC, the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture. So it's Gaten's baby, and it is mandated to develop the industry, and they do that in a number of ways by offering development grants, so writing grants. And then they offer production grants as well. But they do a lot of other things. They do training initiatives like the Sediba writing program, like the Sediba Advanced Co-Production for Producers program. Then they have market attendance, and they're at all of these international markets like Cannes and Toronto and Content London and et cetera, all throughout the year. And people who don't know about the NFF, you absolutely should research it and go on. And they're quite regular with their social media posts, so you can follow that. I've received development grants and production grants from the NFEF, so I think they're important and necessary. They've gone through a bit of a tumultuous last 5 years. I think they've had 5 different CEOs in the last 4 years, so there's been some leadership vacuums there. And then they had a recent portfolio committee hearing, which was a real dog and pony show. The parliamentarians really smacked them for the board not attending that hearing. But they're doing pretty decent work. The Act, the NFEF is governed by the NFEF Act, and that requires them to spend 75% of their budget on recipients, grant recipients in the industry, and 25% on their administration. So 75 is supposed to come to the industry, and 25 they can keep to kind of run the things. And for a long time, that was the reverse. Like, they were spending 75% on themselves, and only 25% was going to the industry. We at the IPO have really kicked up a big fuss about that, and I think they've started to turn the ship around. In the last 2 fiscals, they've managed to hit that deadline, and they're supposed to, if they don't hit the deadline, or they don't meet that goal, then they're supposed to get approval from the minister, and we've asked to see those approvals, but haven't had a response yet. So the NFEF is important if you want development funding for your script. They do short films, they do pilots for TV shows, they do feature films. They don't do documentary, I don't think. No, they do documentary.
They do,
they do documentary. So, if you've got a great idea, and you can see a call for, they do, I think, 3 calls a year, and then have this ad hoc call for production funding that's called the PESP, the Presidential Employment Stimulus Program, which Cyril gives them like 150 million rand a year to give out as production funding. And that's to specifically stimulate jobs and employment in the industry. So it's not available for development funding, but only for production funding. Yeah. And then Gaten said he wants blockbusters, and he's like, why have we spent so many billions on the NFEF, but we haven't had any blockbusters? So now a portion of 50 million rand of that 150 has been contributed towards
blockbusters.
Yes, finding a blockbuster.
But is that the brief that came out last year? There was the 10 million rand thing, or they were 10 million rand projects.
5 10 million rand projects. Okay. So 50 million rand is gone towards the blockbuster.
Can't wait.
They haven't started approving or adjudicating any of those projects yet, because they couldn't find a firm to appoint as a third party.
Didn't you say there was like 9,000 applications or something like that?
Yeah, they received about 9,000 applications, which is indicative of the desperation the industry's in.
Yeah. But I must say, the little I've worked with him, because I exited the film industry, just did commercials and music, and then now I'm trying to stage my comeback with this F.W. de Klerk script that I'm working on. I'm kidding. I'm trying to press presidents.
I play F.W.
If you play presidents, you can.
I have to shave my hair.
So basically, what we've seen so far, and the 2 friends of mine got money. The one guy got like 500,000 rand for a documentary, which is insane. It's amazing. We also got, I think, 400 for a short film. And when we made Veil Waarskyd, we got 150 almost 10 years ago, which was nothing, which is still nothing today. But I mean,
From the NFF?
no, from Silverscaden. But I mean, we had to make a short film for 150, and it was almost impossible. But now to think the NFF gives you 500k to shoot a short film is incredible. It helps so much more. But anyway, my point is just
I don't think it's quite 500. I think it's more in the
like 350,
somewhere around there. Yeah.
Wow.
But it's very helpful. Yeah. And as a kind of entry level industry, I mean, usually you would go to the broadcaster, the SABC, to try and get some sort of entry into the industry. That's how I got my start. And a lot of people I know got their start from producing content for the SABC. In fact, when we did City Sesla, we had pitched to them and the pitch went horrible, and then we didn't hear from them, and then they said, oh, something's cancelled on our schedule, can you be on air in 3 months' time? We hadn't written one script, we had no experience whatsoever, and we were like, yeah, sure, no problem. So now there's no broadcaster who would be willing to do that. But that was the function of the SABC, to mandate it to develop the industry and to give opportunities to new entrants and to help people along the way. So where's that work taking place now? I mean, Mzansi Magic has kind of filled that gap, but it's not their mandate. They're a privately owned company. SABC does have a public mandate to develop the industry. Okay, so there's the NFF. Then there are the regional film funds. So the Gauteng Film Commission does do, I think, 3 or so calls a year for development and production funding. Again, it's less money they give.
Gauteng Film Commission.
Gauteng Film Commission.
And now we must write that down. And now our producer, yeah.
It's for projects that doesn't necessarily shoot in Gauteng, but the majority of the funds will be spent in Gauteng. So let's say you were shooting something in the Northwest, but you're a Gauteng-based production company, and you're going to do post here, and you're going to do pre and production, and your wrap here, and you can prove that most of the money will be spent here. Then you're eligible for that. But they're really trying to use it as I think it's part of the Gauteng touristic department. So I've received funding from them as well, and you should go on their website and just check their calls out. Like, I have these tabs open every once a week. I go and check, is there a call open for any of these things? So Gauteng Film Commission, then there's the KZN Film Commission, which is now the KZN Tourism and Film Authority. They rebranded last year, and that also gives development and production funding. And I think the production funding is to 20% of what you spend, 25% of what you spend in KZN to a maximum value of 1.5. If you are not a KZN-based filming, so if you're coming, say, from the Western Cape or Gauteng and you're going to shoot a project there, then you can get up to 1.5 million in production funding. And I think the development funding is in the 200,000 to 300,000 rand range. And then the Western Cape has just started the Cape Film Studios, I want to say, or Cape Film Commission. I forget the name. It used to be housed in Westgrow. Westgrow is a City of Cape Town development arm, and they've started this new company to help funnel the development and production funding, but they have a very small budget, and it's kind of a pilot phase right now to see if it works. So a few people have received some development funds for that, and again, it's very slow amounts. But we hope to see more of that coming, especially since, the Cape and the City of Cape Town is like a major beneficiary of, it has been a major beneficiary of the incentive flow. The DTIC money, 85% of that money goes towards servicing jobs. And I'd say the majority of the servicing jobs take place in the City of Cape Town. So we've had billions of rands flowing into Cape Town from the DTIC. And so we'd like to see the City of Cape Town give back and start to fund their own incentive programs. So that's happening. Then there's I think Limpopo has a film commission. I think the Northwest has a film commission, but there are kind of, here and there. There's the ECDC, the Eastern Cape Economic Development
Every province basically has got
not every. The Northern Cape doesn't have any. Although there's a wonderful film festival called the Northern Cape Film Festival, which does some great work. But the ECDC give development and production funding as well. But there's been some, I stand under correction, but I think there's been some hiccup about the flow of money there, and it was working really well. And a number of filmmakers like Jamil Gobeka did Knuckle City and a few different projects through using the ECDC funding, but then I've recently heard that the flow stopped, but now it's started again. I'm not quite sure where it is. Yeah, so those are the places, and then there are other like private funding opportunities. Yeah, the next narrative Next Narrative Africa Fund is a US-based fund that closed the first call they had, I think, in October last year, and now they're starting to refine each of those submissions and fine-hone them. And they're give significant amount of development and production funding. So that's interesting.
Do banks ever get involved? Can you go to F&B? Hey, I got a script. So the banks don't have a little film artsy side to it, right? Because you can get a home loan, a car loan, the start of a small little business. But is there a
if you can convince a bank to give you a loan.
But how cool would that be if you think about it? But it's a hell of a high risk loan because it's tough these days because you don't really make your money back if you don't have a deal with a streamer to buy your show back. Then F&B gives you $1 million. You're like, okay, now I made my film. How am I going to get my money
exactly.
back?
Yeah, look, that is a tricky one. How do you get the money back, right? I think a lot of the discussions around the DTI and the NFEF and all of the development stuff, like everything, if you think of the timeline of a film and you're developing and you're shooting and you're editing and then boom, you've got the product and now you need to market it and sell it and exploit it. Like people spend a lot of time in this space, but not a lot of time in this space. And because theatrical distribution used to be a viable space, I mean, Vel Vasgoed made money at the box office, Semi Soot made money at the box office, even the super arty films made some cash at the box office, but now, like that is almost completely closed to you, unless you're targeting a very specific homogenous audience, like the Afrikaans content, May If Marlies and the Quicksilvers, those made some money at the box office, but it's a risk. Like I had a film that came out like a fish, went to the box office and didn't make as much money as we had hoped, even though I did everything right. Like I was targeting a specific audience, the Indian family audience. We released in collaboration with the Durban International Film Festival. We're the opening night film of that film festival, so we had good press around it. We had launches in Durban, in Joburg, in Cape Town. We had a great social media campaign, and yet we didn't get the audiences coming out. So it's a risk. So this section of, how do you exploit it? How do you make money off it? Is massively problematic. And so it almost feels like we are rearranging the deck chairs in the Titanic because nobody's paying enough attention to what happens once you get to the finish line and you have a piece of product. How can you sell it? Where can you take it? And you license and sell so many of your rights in this part to get it made. Like, if you're licensing something to Netflix, then they're going to take probably worldwide. But if you manage to convince them only Africa, cool. You can't sell it to any of the other places that you can get a sale from in Africa, like MultiChoice or ETV or SABC or whatever. So you're left with the rest of the world. And I've made a piece of Indian comedy for South Africa, and nobody else is interested in it. So it's a real issue. Like I don't know I don't know what the answer is. I'm kind of stumped, but that is a real problem. We need more focus on it.
I want to end off on a positive note, something that you brought under my attention, and now every second algorithm is feeding me the new vertical stories, webisodes. I don't know what the word is for that, but there's a new trend, micro dramas that's gonna come fast at us, and I think it's one of those. If you're an actor, producer, sitting at home right now, like, because I know a lot of times you're dependent on commissions and auditions and people going, listen, do you want to come and work on this thing? With this, I feel like it might start out tough because there's not a lot of money in it, but if you can be one of the first to get on board, I think you might be, it's like the new gold rush, let's call it that, where it's dramas that's shot vertically, so when your phone is held upright, and that's how you watch it, and the episodes are between a minute and a half, and that is, I see it from a lot of, like, I think Netflix also announced that they're going to mission into that space. Pretty much worldwide, that is the new hot trend. And because it's such speaking under correction now, if you can pull it off in a smaller world, it's going to be affordable to pull off if you're willing to roll up your sleeves and get writing and get a small little crew going. Because it's not dependent on famous, expensive actors. It's going to be just good stories, I guess. But 90-minute thingies cut down to 90 minutes of like 1 to 1.5 minute episodes. What's your thoughts on that? Are you excited about that? Do you think this is something you can get your teeth into?
Yeah, I think it's definitely in the post. It's coming, and it's coming for Africa in a big way. And we've seen a big rise in these, microdrama, vertical dramas. mostly in the East, so China, India, the Philippines. It's now like really branching out in America, and now we start to see some of these big players like DramaBox, Real. There's a South African platform that's starting called Hektik, Hektik. In fact, it's up and running right now. You should go take a look at it. Hektik.app, I think it is called. And that's a South African one. So fantastic. I think they are yet to produce original content. I have a show of mine that's going to be on there, which I'm excited about. And so the interesting business model for the microdrama stuff is that most of these apps will, you download the app and then you deposit money into their wallet, and then that money translates into tokens that you can use to watch these episodes. So the first or second one is for free, and then if you like it, you need to pay a certain amount of tokens. And so in some regard, it's kind of exploitative because they're gamifying the content. It's almost like gambling a little bit, because they're disconnecting the value of money from spending. So that's why they give you the tokens, because you don't really know. The token is like 5 cents worth, so it'll cost you 15 tokens to watch this thing. You don't really have a conceptual idea of how much you're spending on it. You just keep spending. And you feel like you're winning, because at each time, I'll get another video. And the videos are, I hope this isn't going to be the trend in Africa, but they're so extreme and they're so kind of crazy. And like I watch it and I feel like I'm compelled to watch the next one, because
it's so whack.
It's so whack. Yeah, how could this actually have made its way on air? Some of it is like that. The American stuff that's coming out is actually not bad and very interesting. But from an economic point of view, from a producer, like an independent producer, if you do a rev share model, a revenue share model, and you are like sharing the revenue that you generate from the sale of each of these individual things, that is, like I said, a product that can go on selling while you're sleeping. And you can make significant money off that, especially if you've got a hit series. And yes, it doesn't. It's like turning the economics of the film industry a little bit on its head, because, like you said, it doesn't require famous faces. People don't watch these things because Charlize Theron is in it. They watch it because it's the interesting, crazy story, and it's fast-paced, and it's an immediate consumption. Most people are watching it without the volume on, so they're watching it on trains, they're watching it in transport, in between meetings, sneaking a little video here or there, and they get kind of addicted to it, So it is coming, and I think Africa is really primed for that level of content consumption. We still have some barriers. We have relative high data costs. We don't have deep broadband internet penetration as much as we should. But I think it's proven to the market is proven to be wide enough to accommodate a number of players in the market. So I think DramaBox is launching mid this year, somewhere around May. Hektik is already launched. So I'm interested to see what the numbers are going to look like there and how many people will watch it. And I hope it will be another revenue stream, another place for producers to produce content. But it is going to be at a significantly reduced economic value. Like, we're talking, a few thousand rand a minute versus the kind of current kind of industry standard for good quality commission-based content is somewhere between 20 and 30,000 rand a minute. To do something at, say, 4,000 or 5,000 rand a minute means that you've got two people in a room talking to each other pretty much.
Yeah. For 90 minutes.
It's tight,
Yeah.
And then again, you have to learn a bunch of new skills about how to shoot for it, shooting vertical, about how to frame for it, about how to direct it, about, like, you've got each little thing needs to build to some sort of climactic ending to rope that person to come back and watch the next video. So a friend of mine, Terry Kasutu from Both Worlds, is experimenting in the space a bit and has shot 2 pilots of short form content that he's trying to get sales of this content into micro platforms in Asia. Which is a really interesting model, right? So you make the stuff here at our good cost per minute ratio that you can achieve and sell it for a premium in dollars or euros overseas. So I'm interested to see how that experiment is going to work. And then I'd love to see what happens here. I think the Chinese have got deep pockets and have made a lot of money off this stuff. And I hope that they're they're not going to just focus on South Africa. They're going to focus on Africa and probably set up a production hub here in South Africa to service other African territories. Yeah, I think it's interesting. You know, I also think that another interesting, you know, economic model is what we see with like Dar Man. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Yeah.
So he's a YouTuber who produces, I think in September last year, he was aiming at 8 hours a week of original content on YouTube.
Narrative.
Yeah. This is not just one guy, you know, vlogging. This is like full-on scripts, multiple locations, multiple actors. Just go onto YouTube and check Darman, D-H-A-R, new word M-A-N-N, and he's doubled that to 16 hours of content, original content a week, right? And he has a 15,000 square foot studio in LA. He employs 1,500 actors a year, and he's churning this stuff out, and he regularly achieves 25 to 30 million views per piece of content. And that's kind of the opposite, right? That's not short form, that's very long form stuff. And then we see these podcasts that run for 2-3 hours, and people love it. They eat it up, right? So I don't know. It's an interesting space to be in. I think the YouTube economics are tricky because, you know, you have to hit a certain number of subs and views in order to make it economically viable. And but it has other revenue possibilities. You can direct that audience to your own website.
You can target also, yeah.
You can do Patreon stuff. You can sell your merchandising to them. You're building an audience for another piece of product. Like the guy came out, Markiplier. I don't know how you pronounce that name. Do you know Markiplier? He's an American YouTuber who just came out with a horror film, which I cannot remember the name of, and it opened in 2,000 cinemas in the States. Yeah. And he didn't do almost any marketing for it. He just relied on his audience who watch him regularly, and it has done gangbusters. And it's basically him in this film, like 2 or 3 other actors. It's a horror, it plays out in space. So I think that's super interesting, you know, building that audience. I'm gonna put my feet in and dabble in the micro drama space, so I'll report back and see how it goes.
I must say, even though I know the Canal Plus, there's a lot of like downsides. Well, like there's a lot of negative stuff that's happening in the industry right now. But there's stuff like this. South Africa has always been a place of opportunity. Like everyone says that, and especially in this space now, like this is definitely a place where you're gonna clip a go. It's gonna be rough to start if you want to dabble in that space. But I'm always someone that's a little bit, the glass is always half full. It's easy for me to say because I'm not dependent on long form. My life is not dependent on film and series at the moment. But I mean, stuff like this is like if you're really keen to roll up your sleeves and get involved in storytelling, then this for me feels like a place where you can, because the cell phone quality these days are insane. If the lighting is nice, your cell phone shoots flipper nice quality, and this is a world where you can operate in that space with the vertical. So I'm excited about this.
There's great opportunities. Like you have to think out the box. You have to find an audience. Okay, a friend of mine, Simpiwe Mbata, who runs a YouTube and TikTok channel called I'm a Fan's Where To. I don't know if you
probably... Is that you told me about the soccer?
Yes. Yeah. So he and his brother were at a soccer match at the Calabash, and as they were exiting the soccer match, they were coming down the ramps, and he just, the soccer fans were so funny and were so interesting and dynamic, and all of them had been kind of liquored up a little bit. So he just started recording it, and he found an absolute niche and a gap in the market because there is nobody producing soccer fan content. And, he showed me his stats, and he's got over 1 billion views in the last 6 months, combined across TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. I mean, it's going gangbusters. He has 4 YouTube channels, which is all monetized. He has merchandising he's selling. He's got a company. He's employing 6 other people. He does these soccer fans have now become like famous on his channel. He does these watch parties, right? So they're not there. He is filming the soccer fans watching the soccer game, and he recognizes that the content is only valuable if it's delivered as quickly as possible. So they would go to the stadiums, film the soccer fans interviewed, and then stay till 2:00 in the morning, editing it in his car in the parking lot, and upload it from their car because the fans want to know exactly now what has happened, and that's how he's managed to achieve a pretty decent success out of that. He's built a whole business around it. I'm very proud of him. So what is that for? Other spaces, and soccer is so great because it's perennial. There's always the Nedbank chap Nedbank Cup, there's the PSL. It's just like there's always soccer happening. So, we need to think outside the box. We need to find audiences. Find an audience that is already interested in something and then cater to that audience, I think.
No, definitely. The audience is definitely there. It's just now up to us as creatives and filmmakers and actors to go and find them and serve them, because people are hungry for stories. They'll always be.
Yeah. And I'd love to come back and chat to you about our project that is coming out on Netflix later this year.
No, we're definitely going to do a whole little full-on marketing mission all from the start with everyone included. That'll be incredible.
Yeah.
Bouwer
and I shot a film together in last year, July, and I think...
We're not allowed to say the name. Or not?
I'm going to say it nonetheless.
So you're the boss, you can say it.
No, actually, I think we've probably got... Anyway,
I wonder if me and Karine said it.
No, you didn't.
Okay, great.
I watched, but
we won't say the name, but
okay,
it's very exciting. But soon, I'm guessing.
A rom-com, an Afrikaans rom-com for the South African audience on Netflix. We're looking at May, somewhere around there.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Awesome, Luke. But thanks for coming to hang out. We will see you again before we release the film.
I don't want it to feel super negative. I am positive about this country and about our industry specifically.
No, but there's people out there that need answers and need, you're more informed than just us creatives. So, I mean, it's always the business part of the industry that we always neglect as creatives, because we just want to act, we just want to tell stories, and it's all this fairy tales, but it's like, that part is the important part. That's the part that keeps you alive and keeps food on the table. So, no, this was incredibly informative. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, man.
See you again. Cheers, Luke.
Cheers.